Hey guys, welcome to this introduction video into THORChain's revenue and tokenomics. It's going to be a very high level conversation here. We're going to keep it very, very simple for brevity. THORChain is easy to explain, but it's also a very complex protocol. So we're going to be very simplified today. We're going to start at the very beginning of the history of THORChain, the genesis, and then we're going to skip to modern day. So let's get right into that here. So the tokenomics of Rune, the very beginning, this was the token distribution, right? This is about 2020. We had BEP2 Rune. So Rune is its own layer one. Back then, it existed on the Binance chain BEP2, and this chain is now deprecated, doesn't really exist anymore. And this is how we figured out all the swap logic for THORChain, because THORChain is a swapping protocol. It's an AMM, right? So you swap real layer one for real layer one. And to figure that out, we started on an interface called BEP swap, where we just played with Binance wrapped assets and we got the swap logic figured out. It's a very, very interesting journey there, but we got it done. So when it comes to any protocol, people want to know, right? Where does the revenue come from? How do you make money, right? The yield. This little Binance thing here, where does the yield come from? And, Binance, centralized exchange, right? A lot of these players, they don't tell you what's going on in the internals. They have a ledger and internal information, right? Like if you have assets on a centralized exchange, you don't really own those assets. You're just assigned a value. It's an internal accounting mechanism that you cannot see, you can't audit at any time, right? You got some players here, everyone loves this guy, and then here's Alex, right? That didn't work out so good, right? So there's a long history of problems with crypto and accountability. But that changes with THORChain, changes a lot. So let's talk about it. So the main primary revenue of THORChain is swap volume, real swaps from real people. Okay. And THORChain charges a fee when it comes to a swap on the protocol level. That's 10 basis points at the recording of this video, subject to change. Okay. And this is the entire history of THORChain into weekly slices here. And you can think of THORChain kind of as an ETF where, when the market's really hot and booming, there's a lot of swap volume. There's dips, there's ups, there's highs, there's lows, right? It's just a constantly evolving system. So pretty cool. And THORChain is still firing away, no problem, doing swaps every single day, every single block. When it comes to partners, we have many. There is a huge list to talk about. Trust Wallet was our first big integration, and Trust Wallet still leads the pack to this day. They use THORChain on the back end. There's other big names, Ledger. THORSwap is a separate team. They're similar to the THORChain, but they are a separate team. They're great. Edge Wallet, SwapKit is something called an API aggregator. They basically, do a lot of connections. We have Thor Wallet, again, a separate team. Leodex, Voltiseg, very secure, awesome wallet here. Shapeshift, original OG partners of THORChain. We're going to stop at Regira here. Regira is very special. Now, this is what we call the app layer of THORChain. It's basically an entire DeFi suite built on top of THORChain. It's really cool. We're going to talk about that because now there's a separate way that THORChain makes money now, and this is very new. So whenever someone uses an app layer primitive, and again, it's going to be any primitive you can imagine on a centralized exchange, lending, perps, money markets, leverage trading, prediction markets, whatever. It's all coming to the Regiran app layer. They share a fee, 50%, if they use the base protocol's liquidity, which is very often. Again, very early days on the Regiran app layer, but this is going to be a second way that THORChain is going to make lots of revenue. Very exciting. So have to mention this because it's going to become a very big talking point in the near future. For the tokenomics of THORChain, we're going to go through this here a little briskly. So we have Rune. This is the main token. And this is TCY, an equity sharing token. We'll talk more about that later. Rune's tokenomics. So we have a total supply of 425, circulating supply of 350 million, and then the reserve 75 million. This number is the difference between these two numbers right here, right? That's the difference. We'll go quickly check the supply tracker. So if we come right here, scroll down to the supply distribution, you can check these out here. This is the bonded Rune. This is the Rune that's in the system that node operators use. We'll talk more about that later. We have pooled Rune. This is the liquidity providers. This is the reserve right here, 74 million. And we'll do the whole circle here. This is Rune that's just idle in wallets. This is Binance. and then Bybit, another centralized exchange. Okay, so we'll go back to our list here. We'll keep going down. So Rune is the settlement layer of THORChain. It's basically the meat and potatoes. It's like the fuel. It's how everything works. Network security. So there are node operators on THORChain, and they bond Rune. And that Rune is the security, and they earn Rune on their Rune because when they churn in, they validate transactions, swapping in and out of assets and sending assets, right? That's node operators and bond providers. We say BPs for short, for bond providers. The liquidity in Rune, there are pools for every layer one asset, and they're all paired with Rune. So you have, for example, Bitcoin, Rune, Litecoin Rune, Ethereum Rune, Doge Rune, AVAX Rune, XRP Rune, on and on and on, right? And this is how it works. Let's say someone wants to make a Bitcoin to Ethereum swap, Bitcoin to Ethereum, right? You have your Bitcoin, it gets sent to THORChain, it goes to the Bitcoin Rune pool, that Bitcoin gets changed into Rune, that Rune goes to the Ethereum Rune pool, and that Rune gets changed to Ethereum. That Ethereum gets sent to the outbound, right? To the outbound that is correlated to you on your swap. That's how it works. That's a very simplified way to explain it. It actually happens all within one block, right? But that's how it works from a visualization point. You go Bitcoin, Rune, Rune, Ethereum, Ethereum, outbound. Let's keep going on here. Burn. THORChain has a burn. We're going to go back to that same tracker here. We go up here. Rune is burned every single block, right? So every 6 seconds, Rune is burned. And so 5% of all revenue goes there. So it's a little less, less than 0.00, right? But that's just because there's no swap volume at this particular point in time. But we have 1.4 million Rune that has been burned currently. And this just never stops. It's all day, all night, constantly burning Rune. So THORChain is deflationary. It is a deflationary asset. There is no inflationary mechanism. There's no other, dispersal of Rune coming. There's no block rewards, nothing like that. It's completely deflationary. The incentives, as we said, node operators, they earn Rune on their Rune when they bond, then they churn in, right? The revenue on THORChain, it's real yield, guys. 100% is real yield from network activity. And we average about $50,000 to $100,000 in fees. That can be lower or much higher. Just, again, depends on the activity of the general market. And something important to remember is that app layer, but that's new, right? So that's not listed here, but the app layer would also going to correlate to revenue for THORChain. But at the end of the day, the app layer is like swaps on the base layer, but it does deserve its own separate compartment when you think about it. Revenue distribution here. So important to remember, THORChain is like a living and breathing organism. This graphic is slightly out of date here. This should say 75%, and we should have a 5% marketing budget here, but we're going to just talk about this part right here. Okay, so we mentioned the 5% burn already. The developer fund. Let's talk about the developers. This is 9Realms. They are some of the devs that really monitor THORChain, maintain it, add chain clients, add features. They're the primary ones that do this. This is a really solid team. We also have a Discord channel, a dev Discord channel. We'll go here, and this is where they post updates all the time, where you can read what's going on. This is open to the public, but I must stress, if you come to this, please do not post in here. This is a very high signal to noise ratio, okay? If you are new to THORChain, definitely need to make sure you learn about THORChain first before you post in here. But we do recommend not posting in here, but you can observe what's going on at any point. If you are interested in posting in Discord, though, if you go to the top of this, you go to the non-dev chat here. There is a great THORChain community Discord where you can go and learn all about THORChain. Because again, as I said in the beginning of the video, this is going to be very high level, but there is a big onion to peel back, many layers of THORChain. And then maybe one day when you get enough knowledge, you can probably make a worthy contribution on Dev Discord, but definitely have to do your due diligence, your work before you get to that point. Let's go back here. We have the marketing fund here. And this is a newer thing that's been going on. This is about 6 months old. We're going to go to the ADR here. This is ADR 21. Make it super simple. We had the Treasury Kickstart with $250,000. This primarily was for the development of the main THORChain interface, which I'm going to go to here. This is in light mode, so a little warning for everybody. This is the main THORChain interface. We are going to come back to this. The 5% of the revenue is directed to the marketing budget, right? And this is handled by someone, Kenton. Scorch, and then a representative on the 9 Realms core development team. Okay. And this has been going on now again for 6 months. And again, guys, it's very important that this is totally up to the nodes of THORChain. THORChain is a decentralized system that is completely powered and directed by the node operators themselves. They can change this anytime. They can make this 5%, 10%, or they can make it 0%. They could double the devs' the revenue fee that they're making. They can take it away. They can switch dev development teams. THORChain is just completely up to what the node consensus wants to do, right? It's a living and breathing organism. That's what THORChain is. We'll come back here. TCY holders. So this is that equity sharing token I mentioned earlier. 10% of the protocol's revenue goes to TCY holders. For a lot of people who get into THORChain for the first time, this is how they start, right? They get some TCY, they stake it, and then they earn Rune with their TCY. And the Rune is distributed about once a day, roughly, okay? The great thing about TCY is you don't need to bond it. It doesn't get locked in the system for a certain amount of time. You can unstake it, stake it as will. It's very liquid. You can sell, buy, whatever you want to do, okay? If you don't know what bonding or any of that stuff is, the differences, don't worry about this. Again, guys, it's just very high level, very simple. We're going to have lots of videos in the future explaining all this. And then the rest of the radio 75, gets the rest of the system, right? Node operators, BP, liquidity pools, the rest of the system, the rest of the flow goes. And that's how it is, guys. We're going to go to our front end again. And this is how people get started typically, right? They go to connect your wallet, right? They have all these assets here. If you want to get the assets here, this is how you go. You go to the swapping base. You just click one asset here. If you click R, this is Rune right here. This is the base asset of THORChain. Ruji is the app layer for Rujira. Okay, so important that you don't get those confused. This is a really cool asset. This is a staking token on the app layer itself. But again, we're not going to talk about that. The meat and potatoes of THORChain is Rune. Get rid of the R here. We'll then click in a T. This is TCY. That is that equity token that can be staked, and then you can earn yield on it on THORChain. But we're going to end the video there, guys. Again, super high level, very simple. We're going to be releasing lots of videos, a series where we're going to break THORChain down piece by piece, bit by bit, in really bite-sized chunks, so it's really easy to consume. THORChain's very easy to explain on a superficial level, right? But when you take a really deep look at the internals, it can be very complicated indeed. So if you guys like this content, please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be releasing a lot more content, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Take care. Bye-bye.